Hello, this is Stephen L. We are back, and today I'll be doing the first episode in my reviews of the Green Hornet 66 TV show. This is what we did with Batman 66, but we're doing it with the Green Hornet. Now, before we get into the video, the plot, the cast, the first thing you guys need to know is, who the heck is the Green Hornet? Well, the Green Hornet is, of course, a very old comic book character, and in many ways he wasn't a comic book character. He actually started off as a radio program during I believe it was the Great Depression, created by the same man who gave us the Lone Ranger. In fact, in most chronology of the characters, both of the Lone Ranger and the Green Hornet, it is made heavenly clear that the Green Hornet is actually the Lone Ranger's great ancestor. But anyway, back. The character of the Green Hornet started off as originally a radio program. It was so successful it had 2 movie serials, and then of course it spun off into comics. During the late 60s, William Dozer, the same man that brought us the 66 Batman Adam West TV show, was really trying to be very progressive and ahead of what other shows were at the time. So he did essentially the first ever superhero spin-off show. So he decided to do it with the Green Hornet. Now the Green Hornet is one of these few characters that is not owned by giants such as DC or Marvel. He's one of the few characters that actually belongs to, well, none. He kind of went from publisher to publisher. As far as I know, he's now owned by Dynamite Comics, and the Green Hornet is more in the realm of the pulp fiction characters like the Spider, the Shadow, the Black Bat, Zorro, those type of characters. And so, yeah, I decided to do this as these reviews for the Green Hornet because A, I'm a huge fan of the Green Hornet. I'm going to do all the original 66 episodes and possibly the Seth Rogen movie down the line. But also, I want to sort of fill in the gap with these Batman 66 episode reviews because I've done the series, and of course I got other 66 episode kind of reviews, things I plan to do down the line. But because I really have nothing really to do, I decided really to fill the void just for the moment to do the series, and I was a huge fan of the series. Now keep in mind, when we go into this is one of the biggest cult classic TV shows of all time. Sadly, the show only ran for 1 season from 66 to 67, and the reason why it's a cult classic for 2 reasons. One, you could argue it is the proper first dark superhero show, which we have nearly everywhere now. Nearly all superhero shows are dark, and it started off here. Like I said, this was a spin-off show, so since Batman was more lighthearted and campy, the Green Hornet was more dark and serious. Also, the Green Hornet premise as how he fights crime is very different compared to other superheroes. Also, I want to do this because I genuinely like the show. Again, this show is a huge cult classic, it's beloved now, and it is considered one of the most iconic versions of the Green Hornet to date. And any other, either when it comes to comic adaptations, or even movie adaptations, which the Seth Rogen did, this is such on a high pedestal because of the interpretation it set and laid the foundations to. So with that very long synopsis out of the way, sit back, relax, and let us review the Green Hornet 66 with the very first episode, The Silent Gun. Let's get into it. We begin this episode at a funeral where Dave Baxter is laying to rest his father, and he's there along with his soon-to-be fiancée, soon-to-be wife. Just as that's happening, Frank Scanlon, this city's DA, rolls up in a police car along with the police sergeant. It is told that he was phoned by Mr. Baxter to quickly meet him after the funeral, or it might be too late. Just as that happened, we cut to a mysterious man in the mourning crowd, where he takes out of his pocket a very weird-looking gun and aims it at Baxter. Suddenly, he falls to the ground, and Frank Scanlon and the sergeant quickly run out of the police car to check, and to their shock, he's been shot. The problem? No one heard a gun blast. And that is a really good way to really open the episode, and then we get to the opening credits, which also introduces how the Green Hornet operates. The Green Hornet, along with his aide Kato, ride around in the Black Beauty. On police records, they are wanted criminals. But in reality, the Green Hornet is really Britt Reed, owner and publisher of the Daily Sentinel, with his secret identity being only known to his secretary and the district attorney. And these two ride out to essentially fight crime and protect the innocent. Just as that's happening, we get this really full-on, full-energy theme music, and it is really iconic and is definitely more in line with the Green Hornet. It is and the trumpet noise is just there, you know, with the energy feeling, and it fits well with the Green Hornet. When you hear this theme, you think of the Green Hornet. Anyway, with that really opening that both gets us update to what the character and essentially the show we're about to see, we get into the episode where we go to the Daily Sentinel, the biggest newspaper in the city, which is owned by Britt Reed. Here he is startled at the killing. First off, the person was shot. No one heard a gun blast, a silencer, or basically anything to tip off the gun, who the gunner was, and he's completely baffled. Just as that happens, he gets a call from Frank Scanlon, who tells him about the caliber of a gun, which is something that they've both never heard of, but also wants to privately meet with him. Just as that happened, Mike Axford, a person that works at the Daily Sentinel, comes in and tells that Dave Bannister's girlfriend, or fiance, whatever, calls up and says that she wants to meet and explain the story. She believes she might be next and is willing to give up the story in exchange for cash. And of course, Britt Reed agrees to go along with it, and tells Mike to set up the deal. And just as Mike's leaving, we get a little line that tells that Mike Axford actually used to work with Britt Reed's father. Again, Britt Reed's father actually owns the Daily Sentinel. Britt Reed's inherited and now runs it. And it's clear that Britt keeps Mike around because A, connection to his father, and B, he generally likes the guy. He's an old school reporter that was working on the newspaper with his father, I'm guessing during its early years. Just as that happening, Britt Reed ends up leaving the Daily Sentinel and goes to his, essentially, I'm guessing not a mansion, he lives more in a sort of swanky apartment type thing. But just as that happened, Frank Scanlon goes into a back alley where there's a secret entrance, and makes his way into Britt Reed's house. He then comes in and explains that the caliber gun, even though it's unusual, has managed to find out something. The gun that was used to use by the army when they were trying to infiltrate behind enemy lines, and Dave Bannister's father used to be a retired gunsmith. Just as that's happening, Britt Reed also explains about the deal that Dave Bannister's girlfriend is trying to make, and says that the Green Hornet will be essentially interrupting the transaction. Just as that's happening, Britt Reed, Kato end up getting dressed in their costumes, and they go essentially into the garage where it's revealed that a lever that hides one of the greatest superhero cars, and arguably one of the greatest cars in television, the infamous Black Beauty. They hop in and drive off to the Daily Sentinel. Just as that's happening, Dave Bannister's girlfriend meets with Mike Axford, and just as she's about to spill what she has, the Green Hornet shows up along with Kato. Green Hornet sprays Mike Axford with his gun, that essentially has knockout gas, essentially an important gadget used in the Green Hornet's arsenal. They manage to corner Dave Bannister's girlfriend, and the Green Hornet offers her money, twice as much as the Daily Sentinel was, for information, especially on the gun that was being used and more about it. At first she's hesitant, but the Green Hornet talks her into it and guarantees her protection if he agrees to help. Just as that happening, she spills everything. Before her and Baxter were to be married, she had the idea to have quite a large sum of money in the account before they do so. It's a pretty smart idea. The problem, they were saving a little bit each week, but the amount was small and slow. He couldn't take it and essentially tried to gamble to get higher, ended up losing his money. How did the gun fit into this? Well, she reveals that the person responsible for killing Dave is Joe Renner, an enforcer that works for the notorious gangster Al Trump. In exchange to wipe the slate clean, he reveals the gun to sort of wipe the slate clean. However, Dave Bannister's father finds out, and Trump had him run down by a car and clearly killed Dave in order to spill more of the beans, or to prevent from going to the police. And now she fears she might be next in order to cover up the whole thing. He then asks, where does Joe Renner live? And she reveals the address of her apartment. The Green Hornet and Kato make their way there and are about to enter, but hide when they see two people coming out of Joe Renner's apartment. Kato asks if one of them's Renner. Green Hornet says no, but they are thugs, work for another rival gangster, Big Dan Carley. The Green Hornet and Kato then enter the apartment only to find Joe Renner dead. They inspect him and realize that those two not only killed Renner, but Dan Carly knows about the gun. And if they don't find it quick, Dan could take over the, whole city with it. Just as they're about to leave, Al Trump comes in with 2 of his henchmen and holds him up at gunpoint, and they jump to the conclusion that the Green Hornet killed Renner. At gunpoint, he essentially tells them to put up their hands and tells one of the henchmen to call the police, saying that they've caught the Green Hornet. Whilst they're momentarily distracted, Kato essentially throws something at Trump, dropping his gun, and essentially knocks out the 2 henchmen while the Green Hornet subdues Trump. They then interrogate him, revealing that Dan Carly's boys were here and were the ones that really killed Renner. Al Trump believes him, and he also asks that they also get their hands on the gun. He stutters for a bit, says, "What gun?" Eventually, he's interrogated to the point where he says, "I have it stashed," and says that Dan Carly is going to keep killing until he gets his hands on that gun. Trump says he's not scared of him, but then he reminds that Dan Carly is one of the biggest gangsters in the city, and has killed many rivals or many people that have opposed him, essentially scaring him to have the Green Hornet propose a deal between the 2 in exchange for half. This is a really nice and intense scene and shows that what the Green Hornet kind of is to these gangsters. They view him just another rival guy, a rival tough guy, basically muscling their way into their rackets. And this is especially proven when the Green Hornet and Kato go to visit Dan Carly. After making their way in and essentially Kato subduing the Dan Carly's 2 hoods, they then come to another business proposition, where the Green Hornet makes a deal with Dan Carly to break her a piece and have a demonstration on the gun and have everyone get in on the action. While the conversation is happening, Kato plants a bug and they leave. So Green Hornet no doubt suspected that Dan Carly will pull a double cross. And as a result, Dan Carly orders his boys out and gets Al Trump on the phone and agrees to propose a deal to get rid of the Green Hornet. With the Green Hornet essentially having info on a possible assassination attempt, he informs Frank Scanlon about it. Frank says, "Let me in on this." He says, "No, the Green Hornet will deal with it." Just as that's happening, the Green Hornet is picked up by Al Trump and Dan Carly and are taken to one of Al Trump's warehouses. Whilst that, Kato is secretly behind them, following them. But however, the Black Beauty is seen by a cop car, and a car chase ensues. Whilst that's happening, the Green Hornet makes his way to an abandoned garage by Al Trump. Whilst there, Al Trump and Dan Carly plan to ambush the Green Hornet, but because he knows about the trap, is one step ahead and manages to run his way to escape them and quickly run into a garage, where he turns out the light. The 2 realize that no way the Green Hornet can get out of the garage since it's locked, and it's a classic cat and mouse game with nice intensity, a good soundtrack, a good music score, and you clearly see how these 2 gangsters operate. Such as Al Trump is more jittery and gunplay, and Dan Carly is more smart and cool. The Green Hornet manages to subdue Al Trump, but is quickly at gunpoint by Dan Carly. And if you wonder what happened to Kato, he managed to get away from the cops and managed to quickly follows the tracking system to the Green Hornet. And here, the Green Hornet is literally at gunpoint. And here's revealed that just how notorious the Green Hornet is in the underworld, and that he's clearly been a thorn in many racketeers' side. And when Dan Carly is about to shoot him with the silenced gun, he is distracted when the Black Beauty blasts rockets into the door and drives in, causing Dan Carly to move the gun slightly, firing at a pole where steam bursts into his face. Essentially, I'm guessing, killing him. Just as that's happened, Kato gets out and the 2 look at the one knocked out, I'm pretty sure one dead gangster, and essentially calls Frank Scanlon to come in and wrap up. And here we end our episode, the first episode in the 66 Green Hornet TV show. The cast here, first off, we have the Green Hornet and Britt Reed, played by Van Williams, a very well-known actor from movies and TVs and bit parts. He's basically well-known in that field. He does the Green Hornet marvelously here. Britt Reed as this, well, we don't really see him much of Britt Reed, but we do see him how he is this smart and intelligent and definitely cool, calm, leveled individual. But as the Green Hornet, he portrays himself as this intimidating, tough guy gangster, And essentially, that's what the Green Hornet tries to project himself as, a gangster muscling in on other criminal rackets. But when he was with Dave Bannister's girlfriend or fiancée, he's shown a little softer side and a little compassion, something that makes even that very interesting. Here we also have Kato, portrayed by cultural icon Bruce Lee. Yes, this was Bruce Lee's first acting role. And his portrayal of Kato is definitely, just as Van Williams' portrayal of the Green Hornet is definitely heavily influential, the Green Hornet, a sidekick, Kato, is even more influential. Again, this was Bruce Lee's first acting role, so we get to see him actually portray some of his karate moves, which I love to the max. Now, there's going to be more down the line. We didn't get to do much of that in this episode, but it's great nonetheless. This was his first acting role, and of course, Bruce Lee would only become more of a star in the 70s when he did all these karate films, kicked in the karate age films, and his portrayal of Kato here is completely influential. In many ways, when you think of the Green Hornet and you think of Kato, you're thinking of Bruce Lee. Now here we have the secretary, Miss Case, portrayed by Wenda Wagner. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. And she's essentially this secretary who essentially comes up with the a secretary. She plays more of a role in the later episodes, but she's essentially secretary and is in on Britt Reed's real identity. Here we also have Frank Scanlon, our district attorney, played by Walter Brooke. Hopefully that is also being pronounced right. And essentially is what is to the Green Hornet what Commissioner Gordon is to Batman, an aide within the actual legal system. Now they were going to use the commissioner, but they didn't want to draw too much parallel with the Batman show, so they thought, well, who else could work within law enforcement system and be their ally? They went with Frank Scanlon. Interesting, because in Batman, in pretty much any chronology, Batman gets along with the DA, especially the Harvey Dent version, before he tragically became Two-Face. So it's really interesting they went with that. And here, of course, is Mike Axford, portrayed by Lloyd Goff. Hopefully I'm pronounced right. And he's essentially a longtime reporter, friends with Britt Reed's father, and I guess, they have that relationship of good friends and slightly father figure, because Mike knew Reed when he was a kid, and basically was there when Reed's father essentially built the company. So I guess, and he is portrayed as being a person who, really wants to nab the Green Hornet, and really has bought into the Green Hornet really being a notorious outlaw, a notorious criminal. And he kind of provides a little bit of comic relief. He doesn't do much in this episode, but he will do later within the series. Now let's talk about the villains. Right here is Big Dan Carly and Al Trump. Something you need to know about the Green Hornet show. Unlike Batman that had more colorful, flamboyant villains, the Green Hornet played it more straight. And in the comics and radio series, the Green Hornet was going up against notorious gangsters and racketeers. He wasn't really going up against supervillains. He went up against more crooked businessmen, crooked politicians, and gangsters mostly. Again, he was a product of, the superheroes fighting organized crime. Now, if I recall correctly, Big Dan Carly was played by Lloyd Bochner, and when I see him, I'm reminded of a more younger Vito Corleone, but more sadistic and less with morals. And Al Trump, he was portrayed by Charles Francisco, and essentially honestly, he looks really more like a tough guy gangster that's really built up, like a hood that's running a gang, but Dan Carly looks like a more legitimate businessman. So like the gangsters are different. Again, Green Hornet didn't go up against really colorful villains. He was mostly going up against gangsters and racketeers. Other than that, these two are fine, and I really enjoyed them. The Silent Gun, for me, is a really good episode to start off this series. I would have loved to see Kato do more karate stuff, but overall this is really good. It also establishes the series of what to expect, with a more darker tone, realism, people actually dying compared to Batman. Even in throughout the series, not that much people died in this show. We had a few, which were unexpected when you consider it's lighthearted, but this is a more darker superhero show. And considering the more superhero shows today are much more darker, this was the one that really kicked it off. And I really like it. It also sets up the characters. Again, we don't really know why Britt Reed got into this. But ironically, we are going to get the answer to that question later down the line, so who knows? So wait for that. Overall, this was a good episode to start off the series. There we have it. That was The Silent Gun, the first episode in the Green Hornet 66 TV show. Join us next time when we review the second episode. So until then, this has been the Stephen Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, so long for now.